Recording in progress. Great. Hello, my powerful everyday women of the world. Welcome to the Startup Stories podcast, where the ambitious everyday woman is heard, held, and served in life first and in business second. I'm your host, Mia Frankel of Powerful Inc., the everyday woman's coach for living a peaceful and productive life. On this podcast, you'll hear relatable stories with phenomenal guests that will keep you sane, grounded, and growing, that will normalize your experience while inspiring and encouraging the dreams within you to come to fruition and deliver your purpose to the world. Today, we have an incredibly powerful guest joining us. My dear sisters, I am just continuously blown away at the caliber of women being attracted to this show. And then having to face my own identity and being like, oh my gosh, I got to hold conversation with some of these women for upwards of an hour. But this is part of the journey and being normalized into that identity. This is how we grow and evolve. This is how a beautiful woman like Dr. Sarah Choudhary has developed, chosen, created, pursued this incredible 20 plus year portfolio that she's sitting on today. It's hard to describe 20 years in a perfectly articulated bio, but the highlights are always twofold. It's the woman behind the journey as well as the results of it that continue to encourage you, right? So Sarah is absolutely a serial entrepreneur. And when we think of that, like, what does that mean? Somebody who has a relentless pursuit of creating to serve. Right. And this is what she's done in technology, in writing, in a PhD in data science and business analytics, over 2 decades, 20 plus years, building companies that combine technology, human behavior, and systems thinking, this beautiful triangulation of three things that feed and support each other, which is a bit more feminine, a bit more holistic and supportive. She's founded multiple ventures across food tech, transportation, health tech, coaching. She's built with co-founders or external funding. She's navigated legal frameworks, trademarks, operations, like endless amounts of stuff, has been featured on all the fancy platforms, has worked with some incredibly well-known names, which we will name drop, the Jay Shetty Institute as one example. And this is the caliber that she's striving for. And she's now releasing yet another book called The Quantum Code of Wealth. May we all get our hands on a copy, because that is a juicy title, to explore clarity, decision making, and inner alignment as the true drivers of sustainable success, which could not be, in my mind and in my passion and mission as well, more true to the female style of leadership, particularly in a male-dominated world, where Sarah helps us, the ambitious women and founders, build these businesses without burnout, without losing ourselves, without having to recalibrate into something else after we've achieved a certain level. So it's a really beautiful example, again, of leadership and of choosing to be that woman. And Sarah, you're going to walk us through that journey and who you are and maybe a bit of why, like what's driving you and all of that. So welcome to the show and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mia. I really appreciate for your really kind words and walking through about my career and everything. I really appreciate for that. And I'm genuinely excited to be here because I have listened to your show. And what I love is you create this space where women can actually be real, like not the polished highlight reel, but the actual truth, like to building something from nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the rares and it matters. So thank you for having me, first of all. So as for myself, I never sat down and mapped out like I'm going to build 5 companies. And that's not how it happened. Something kept pushing me, and this like restless pull toward like creating, towards building something that actually matters.
Mhm.
I have PhD in data science, spent over 2 decades in AI and machine learning and data.
Mhm.
I have consulted with over 150 plus enterprises, but the real education that came from building, from figuring it out in real time with no safety net. So
Mhm.
I run ICE Innovations. It's a multi-venture company. I bootstrapped, no co-founder, no
Mhm.
outside funding so far,
Mhm.
just me and a stubborn belief that I could figure it out.
Mhm.
With networking, of course, with
Mhm.
the people around us, I do a lot of networking. And inside that umbrella, I have built this rideshare platform, ICE Rides, and a food tech venture called iChef. Am CTO of an education platform, True Angles, which is basically Duolingo for emotional intelligence. And I have a book coming out
Mhm.
called The Quantum Code of Wealth that you mentioned. So people ask how I manage all of it. And
Yeah.
honestly, I stop, try to manage and start aligning, because when your inner operating system is running clean code, the
Mhm.
outer work flows differently.
Mhm.
And what made me decide to become an entrepreneur? Honestly speaking, I did not decide. Something decided for me, and there was always this thing inside, this knowing that I was not just built to just execute someone else's visions. Is for someone else where you get experience. Like I tried the corporate path, I
Mhm.
got the PhD, climbed the ladder, did the consulting thing, and every single time when I hit the ceiling, it was not skill or knowledge that holding me back. It was a container, the too
Right.
small container.
Right.
So when I start building my own containers, and yeah, it's very harder at start, but hard and wrong are two different things. Building solo, bootstrapping, that's hard, but spending your life working on the things that don't light you up,
Mhm.
that's wrong, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I will take hard over wrong every time. I said I heard that hard and wrong are two different things.
Yeah.
It's a better to take a hard over the wrong every time. So um, and without co-founder or outside investors, how a lot of people ask these questions, and honestly speaking, how we are being influenced by someone else ideas, or if you open your Instagram, you will see contradictory ideas and all this stuff. So people act like you need permission to build. You
Yeah.
need a co-founder, you should have a checklist, you need VCs monies, you need someone to validate your idea. I never had any of that. What I had was obsession with the problem and the stubbornness to keep going. So this,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
I'm going to jump in for a bit and just come back to a couple of things that you said. How wonderful that you had the stubbornness to continue. I'm just going to sit here and listen to you for an hour. We'll try and engage in some of this conversation, but
sure.
important to draw out that there's the thread that I'm seeing in this is, you set off into the world, let's go see, and what can I do with myself in this world? And we don't always know where to start. So we maybe get a job and yeah, do the corporate thing and explore. And that gives us exposure and experience, right? And gives us
Yep.
some of the variety and like an audit on different ways that the world works. And when
Mm,
you said you felt stuck in a small container, that really strikes hard because like I can relate to that in my day to day, trying to build something bigger from where I'm standing
mm,
because I'm limited in a job. I can only earn so much unless I climb that corporate ladder. And
mm,
that takes time and that takes timing, which may not always be aligned. Currently in my job, my
mm,
manager's not going to retire for about 5 years. She only just got
mm,
hired into that position. So I can mentor and I can groom and I can wait, but I'm
mm,
stuck in that small container. When I
Mm.
started my corporate career, I was able to grow the job position into an entire service. And I thought, well, this is great, but it was a misleading introduction, I think, to sort of the corporate world, because then it never, there's opportunities, but they're, like you said, they're limited. So we can use that small container for security, for experience, for skill development, and then plant ourselves outside of it and be reaching for something else to make that container bigger until we leave and pursue something else, right? And I
Yes.
really want to highlight too that your set and leading as one of as the first female founder of a ride hailing service. So not only are you bootstrapping and, pursuing this entrepreneurial new pursuit on your own, but also as a first time, you're going first in something that others haven't yet. And that is going to leave a trail behind for more women to follow and you know see your leadership and see your example and believe in possibility for themselves too, and must come with a myriad of challenges as well,
Mm.
because I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the tech world is largely male dominated,
Mm.
and having to navigate that. So finding a way to create a supportive community that might be co-ed for you, um, to help you continue to pursue your mission.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a nuance because small containers are not enemy. They are actually powerful for skill development. Absolutely agree with you. Because when you are learning, you need boundaries, you need
Yeah.
focus. And a small container forces you to go deep inside of wide, right? I
Mhm.
use small containers intentionally, a specific role, a focused project to define the scope, to build skills I don't have, the
Mhm.
strategical, that growth. But the problem is when the containers stay small after you have outgrown it, uh,
Yeah.
when there is a no longer developing you, it's just containing you. This
Mhm.
one, container become a cage. So move is not reject all that. Is to know the difference between a container that building you and the container that boxing you in. Like you small container you mentioned is a great thing, like to sharpen your skills,
Yeah.
then have the courage to break out when the learning stops. So,
Mhm.
uh, and and on the ice right here, I will a little bit tell you about like why take is that. And I have seen during my career when I always take Uber or Lyft rides, I saw initially it was a great, but I over the time I start complaining, getting whenever I say drivers was not happy, they was like, and the attitude was different.
Right.
So I started it because the model is broken, not for the riders but for drivers. The platform
Mhm.
built $1 billion empires on the backs of people who
Mhm.
can barely pay rent. So
Yeah.
talking about like 30 to 35% commission
Mhm.
is start to up to 60% commission on their black box algorithm, while drivers destroy their cars, sacrifice their time, and this
Yeah.
extraction, not partnership.
Yeah.
So my vision was to build ICE ride share on different premises. We only take 25%. We give drivers the option to subscription so they can actually predict their income. We
Mm.
let drivers and riders negotiate through a bid system. No more surge pricing that punishes you for like needing a ride during the rush hour. We're
Mhm.
starting in North Carolina, in Durham, Raleigh, in the Triangle, and I'm specifically going after market. Their big place ignores, right? University towns, military communities, seniors who need reliable transportation to medical appointments. So, and it is not about beating Uber or Lyft or something like that. It is about like building something that actually serves people instead of extracting from them. So we did not build a better rideshare app, but we have built a fairer system, I would say.
That it sounds like healing a broken system and
Mm,
bringing new life and equality to it, right? And this
true.
is like the end of your provided bio about helping the ambitious women build without losing themselves. It's finding ways for that not just to be for an individual gain, but
Mm-hmm.
for the gain of many people to improve the life. Like you said, Uber, for example, making the billions of dollars while that
Mm,
driver is barely paying rent. That is a huge problem. That's um, a disparity in wealth distribution. And
mm,
now finding a
yeah,
new solution will heal a huge element of society and remove that competitive spirit as well and bring, like a safer opportunity for somebody to take this as a job and actually be able to have a sustainable source of revenue from it. That's really, really powerful.
so thank you.
I really like what you said too about knowing when you've grown out of the small container. And that's speaking to a part in my life right now. I'm being very challenged at work, but I realize that it's stretching and that it's growing. It's easy if you've been in a position for a long time, you kind of plateau. And then
Mm,
unless new life is coming in through your self-initiating or a shift happening in the workplace or wherever,
mm,
um, you could look at it two ways, like this is dumb and I don't like it, or where is this growing me? Because the
mm,
discomfort is a sign of change and is a sign
yeah.
of growth. So if you're wondering, how do I know if my container's gotten too small for me or not, you have to
Mm,
start thinking about it differently and start looking at
yeah.
it from new angles where you might see something you haven't, and then
Mm,
getting into your alignment to know whether or not it's still a fit or if it's time to move. I've known when it's been time to change jobs. There's been very clear signs around that. So, what might you suggest as a few prompts or things that you felt when a container
mm.
became truly too small?
Yes, yeah, this a great example that you mentioned. Like, and this what the book that you mentioned about the Quantum Code of Wealth. And it is about something like that. It's about like why smart, successful people
Mm,
keep hitting the invisible ceiling with
mm,
money and success, and why the answer has nothing to do with the strategy or hustle. I have spent 22 years in tech, grinning my face off, convinced with a bottleneck was tactical: work harder, learn more,
mhm,
optimize the funnel, and the whole time the real bottleneck was subconscious.
mm,
It was my deepest beliefs that about who I was allowed to be
yeah,
and what I was allowed to have.
yeah,
So the book bridges basically quantum physics, neuroscience, and cautious research to show that wealth is not something you chase. It's
mhm,
something you become.
yeah,
And I introduced the frameworks like the identity match and the wealth circuit to help reader to see the patterns that are silently running the show. And I wrote this for definitely for skeptical high achievers, tech
mm,
founders, executives, or future entrepreneurs, or people who always roll their eyes on manifestation but can't
right,
explain why they keep self sabotaging on because they
mhm,
need a science, and this
mhm,
book gives you both. So and one thing the identity match, which is a core of this book, is like your external results will always match your internal identity.
yeah,
If I have a self doubt, I cannot build that. I will start thinking of examples of people who failed. If I want
mhm,
uh, failed people example or successful people example, they both actually run the show behind my identity.
yeah,
So if I have a failures, and that will be more kind of like your occupation on my brain, that will be exact results I will get out. So you can hustle your way to a result that exceeds your identity. So, but
mhm,
you won't keep it. So
mhm,
that's why whenever you see lottery winners, they go broke at
yeah,
the end because
mhm,
um, because the identity don't match, and
mhm,
that's why entrepreneur who hit like big exits sometimes feel empty 6 months later. So
yeah,
identity match framework teaches you to upgrade your internal mode before like model of who you are before
mhm,
you try to change your external circumstances. Give your subconscious a bigger identity, and it
mhm.
will find a way to prove that's true.
like right out of my soul. You're speaking life into what me, the audience, what we're all seeking is
Mm,
who are we and what can we do? And
mm,
breaking limits on that. So when
mm,
I choose this everyday woman brand, the idea is to normalize ambition and laundry and to
mm,
desensationalize um, this example that I saw on one of your socials or maybe your website here about dropping out and becoming a billionaire being a
mm.
dangerous myth, right?
Yeah.
And you beautifully say, we've heard the tales, we dropped out of college and hit this and created that. And you know,
Mm,
the coaching industry, the online, it's so easy to glamorize and sensationalize the tip of the iceberg. But
yeah.
as you point out in the Bill Gates example, he dropped out of Harvard, but not
Yeah.
with nothing. Not
Yes.
with nothing. He wasn't day one and then the next day Microsoft, right? Like this was a
Yeah.
much richer
Mm,
choice that he made with backing
mm,
on it. And to really drill in what Sarah is saying here, my sweet listeners, this internal expansion is one of my commercial jingles for this, Sarah. Internal expansion for external satisfaction. So
mm,
I'm noticing in myself right now a limiting belief around wealth. I'm not good with money. I'm not taking, good stewardship over it. I come into money and I just blow it and it just disappears into the wind again. But what's different this time is I'm realizing that's an old limiting belief.
yep.
And my identity is fighting to stay attached to that because it's more
Mm,
familiar. Neural pathways as worn in trails that you might see in the woods, right? A worn
true.
in path. And now having to forge a new path and separate that belief and create something new that I haven't necessarily seen yet, but I'm
Mm,
going to choose and I'm going to pursue until it becomes. And this is the work behind what you're talking about. And it comes through lived experience. It's not something that you can sit and meditate on. It is
mm.
something that you have to choose. Beautiful. You have so many lovely sayings you've dropped already, and I'm really big on put it on a t-shirt these days. There's a good quote, put it on a t-shirt. Let's just put
Yeah.
all this stuff on a t-shirt. Everybody walk around
Exactly.
and share the message. But wrong, how did you say it? Hard and wrong are
Yes.
different. Hard and
Exactly.
wrong are different. So this shift in your identity, in your belief system,
Mm,
in what you know to be true before you've seen it is hard, but is not wrong. It's necessary because the
it
the
is.
the soul will continue to be restless
Mm.
until it can touch that feeling.
I totally agree. It's 100% is a great because most people have a short circuit in their relationship with money. Somewhere between earning it, receiving it, keeping it, and growing it, in these phases. So that's the break. Maybe they can earn, but they can't keep, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they save the freeze, but when it's time to invest, they couldn't. So the wealth circuit part is in my book. Is a maps where your specific break and give you is the neuroscience back process to repair it. It's
Yes.
not kind of like a woo woo. It's more kind of like an understanding that your nervous system has been conditioned to
Mhm.
respond to money in a specific way,
Yeah.
and that conditioning can be changed. One of example I often tell my kids as well, and some of my mentors, mentees too. The My husband he's in the auto dealerships. So he's more into cars, businesses. So I normally when I drive the car, it's fine. But one day my husband he told me because he isn't that he can't help himself. So he told me about cars, how this works with the engine, with the lights, with the thing, this kind of things. So the day I understand how the car works, how the engine maps are, all the oils and the basically the science
Right.
behind the
Right.
car system itself. The the day I drive that day, it was totally different experience versus when I
Mhm.
was driving every day else.
Mhm.
So understanding your nervous system
Hmm.
is very important. I don't know why it's not been focused in our
Sure.
education.
Yeah.
I believe there should be a specific mandatory courses for kids to understand what their brain is,
Yeah.
because and because this is the how it's shaped you, your
Yes.
beliefs, your identity will, everything is related to how you are being impacted for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
And this is somebody asked me like how your very technical background and how this consciousness work connect.
Yeah.
So they are the same thing, wearing different clothes. When I architect an enterprise system, I am looking at inputs, processes, outputs, where the bottlenecks from,
Hmm.
where the data gets corrupted, where the whole thing breaks down under the load. So when I do the inner work, the nervous system stuff, the subconscious rewiring, I'm doing the exact same thing. Where are the bottlenecks?
Yeah.
What patterns keep when they producing the garbage results? So system thinking applies everywhere. Your brain is a system, your
Yes.
beliefs are code,
Yes.
and your nervous system is infrastructure.
Yes.
Once you see it the way, like person development, it stops being soft and start being engineering.
Yes. Yeah. This is making so tangible a differentiation between our body as a computer and our soul as the leader,
Mhm. Yep.
and having to self audit and observe yourself.
Mm.
And that's why I'm like really thrilled about this new awareness of holding two different realities at the
Mm.
same time and being able to choose one, even though it's unknown, and pursue that instead, leaving something old behind. And the way that you just described that is literally reprogramming. So we
Mm.
consider our body very much a piece of equipment.
Oh
I
yes.
haven't been, I'm going to get a little weird. I haven't been around a lot of dead bodies, but I was around, my grandma passed away a little over a year and a half ago. And when her spirit left, her body was indescribably stiff and
Mm.
vacant. And then the air in the room starts to change when life leaves.
Mm.
And I'm using this as an example because it really demonstrates the two systems. And while they live together for a while, they separate at the end. And if we can start to visualize and navigate ourselves with that framework,
Mm.
that's how we can start to pull out of the automated systems. You know, the
Mm.
body as a machine, as a computer, automates hunger, digestion, sleep process,
Mm.
breathing, healing, autoimmune, all these physiological things. And that
Mm.
is wonderful, but it is the consciousness inside that
Mm.
directs the experience of life.
I very agree, and this is a great observation as well. Thank you for sharing. Uh, and Yeah, that's experience. So, I, you're very important. Like how our bodies, our basically habits, everything I do or we do is affects a lot. I train my body like an athlete, like
Mhm,
strength training,
mhm,
intermittent fasting, longevity, focus protocols, not
mhm.
because I am chasing aesthetics, because my body is the vehicle that carries
Yes,
everything else.
yes,
And you can't build an empire from a broken chassis, right?
yes.
So you're right, nervous system is everybody should understand. I think I work with my nervous system,
Mhm.
polyvagal theory, somatic practices, and understanding like when I am in flight or flight versus regulated mode.
Yeah,
And the state I am in determines the quality of every decision I made.
yeah.
So, and I protect my mind. I'm intentional about
Mhm.
what I consume, who I spend time with,
Hmm.
what I allow to take up my space in my head.
Yeah.
So, attention is the only non-renewable resource I have. So
Hmm.
again, I would say you can build an empire from a broken chases. You're absolutely right. The body and the nervous system and our soul, they all work together. And we have this ability to shape it by our good choices and
Yeah.
making the right decisions.
Yeah. Very deep. Sarah, walk us through you in a day. Who are you in an average day? What does it look like to wake up and put on or, really choose and feel connected to the identity of what you're
Mhm.
standing on now?
Yep. I have, over the time, I have built a lot of habits,
Mhm.
practices. And funny thing, one of my actually, I whenever I see an improvement, I try to not monetize it, but I try to spread it. I have this always a kind of my personality. If I am doing something and I'm seeing good result, I'm trying to get it to everyone. So I
Mhm.
create an app. It's called Zora.app, Zuura. So it's about everything what I do. So one of the very important thing I learned over the time that if you start your day with awareness,
Mhm.
and awareness is not only like when I wake up, I know what's going on around me. Let me
Yeah.
check the phone, who have sent me messages. But it's more about what are you going to do all day.
Mhm.
Either you want to make it productive,
Mhm.
but you're not a machine or robot. You need some time for yourself. How much time you want to keep it to yourself, how to make yourself a kind of like more productive by giving your own self like meditation practices, going for a walk, spend time with your pets or kids, or go for shopping or some kind of a like thing that excites you. It could be a going out and doing a, I love painting, so you can do
Mhm.
anything like that. So but that awareness, that I won't say it's journaling, but I would say it's more kind of like awareness practice. So first when I wake up in the morning, I reflect what I have done yesterday, what I can do one thing today
Mhm.
that can add an improvement. And over the specific time in the month where I look into my habits that I develop over the time, and then I start to look into that. How can I create a better habit than that, an advancement? So this is my morning routine. Then I go for a walk. I normally don't eat breakfast, so I make sure that when I come back from walk, and during walk, I always see I got great ideas,
Yeah.
and the rest of the things that I planned for, I go for that. I work with my consultant, and then I love enjoy cooking. I think cooking is a for myself. For I don't know, a lot of people don't. My daughter doesn't like cooking, so so for me it's therapy.
Yeah.
So I cook, and then after a while, then I start more focused on work.
Yeah.
About spend 3 hours in focus work, and
Mhm.
then I go out with my son's games. So basically, it's not about, you will see in my daily routine, I mostly spend my work time is 2 to 3 hours, but the focused one.
Right.
And rest of the time I spend on myself and with the people around me that make me happiness, that make me
Mhm.
excitement, that make me fresh. And
Mhm.
that's actually make those 3 hours super productive versus if I spend 8 hours working all the time, but with
Mhm.
no space for my own self.
Yeah.
Still, people say you don't answer my call because I put my phone on silent most of
Yeah.
the time, even when I'm with family or if I am with my own self. I think that time is important, and we need to basically respect that as well. Respect your own self. That's very important, and this is how I think everybody can grow.
It's might be shocking to some people to hear 3 hours a day, but that's because we're used to an 8 or 9 hour workday if we've been in the workforce. And in North America, that's sort of, the culture,
Yeah.
maybe the more familiar culture. And it's true if you call it, I kind of see it as like the zone. We hear of the sports zone. If you're an
Mm.
athlete and you're in a game and you just become transcendent into this beautiful orchestra of playing. I
Mm.
experienced it once in high school rugby. It's my claim to fame. I was totally in the zone. and you come out and you're sort of like, whoa, what happened? But that's the holy flow, whatever holy means to you, of
Mm,
really dropping in. And I believe in the higher power. So you're being connected to supernatural and
mm,
being supported and channeling an energetic frequency that allows for those 3 hours to be um, extremely productive and on purpose, in and out. One of my favorite physical workouts is HIIT, high intensity interval training. You get in, you
oh
smash
yeah.
it, and you get out, right?
Yep.
And that's sort of the framework it sounds like you're describing. So
Mm,
what can we do in 3 hours versus spreading it out thinly over eight?
yep.
And and this is the other really important piece, because for me, I got lost in the addiction, in the glamour of thinking I was going to build something cool. And it ended up just being distraction and detours. And now when I go into focus on work, it's like you say, it's very specific,
Mm,
very clear, and in and out,
yep.
and then you
Yes.
move on. And my life gets to exist around all of that while the business grows inside of the life, not
Yes.
the opposite, which was the way I was living and the way that we see women, like you said, achieve that unsustainable success, right?
Mm,
Because we haven't prioritized ourselves and we haven't enjoyed our life during the pursuit. And this is where you really can have it all, but you have to sort yourself out with
mm,
being organized, with being disciplined, with being aware and monitoring the choices that you're making, knowing why you're choosing one thing over another, and being a good steward of time, being a good steward of energy, being a good steward of relationships and these sorts of things.
yes.
So,
Yeah. Discipline is a very important thing. I
mhm,
think this is the base of everything you start. Motivation is great, and
yeah,
motivation is not necessary to keep going on,
yeah,
because there is a I this is what I studied and I observe, that if you get too much motivated, like if I started, my daughter often do that, she started early morning her motivating speeches, and then doing her getting ready for school, she's keep listening it, and I never see her driven by those motivation at all, because when you have so much motivation thinking and listening, it doesn't give you steer. It puts you in that mode. Oh, I already have that. I'm motivated, that's it. But you need to be disciplined, you need to be take action on that.
yeah.
So motivation can be lethal when you don't have discipline. So
Mhm.
put that little dose and put in the discipline. For example, I started strength training 3 years ago, and where I was that time and where I am today, if I compare it,
Yeah,
I thank God a lot that I started that step,
yeah.
and it's changes not only my body, it changes my mind, it
Yeah.
gives you confidence, it gives you understanding of your own body. So
Mhm,
that's very important, have that discipline in your life, in everything, even the habit creation that
mhm,
need a lot of discipline for sure.
mhm. Yeah, because we're not always going to be motivated to want to do the thing. And this is
Exactly.
where hard is
Mm,
harder, and it's wrong not to have the discipline. It's a good differentiation of how that beautiful juxtaposition applies. It's hard to get up and work out. I know in my life that's the only time it's ever worked. I have to wake up and do it right away. Darren
mm,
Hardy said, you eat the frog first thing before the
yeah.
day allows you to make excuses and distract. If I
Mm,
wake up and work out in the morning, it fits the best. Otherwise, I'm putting it off for the rest of the day and taking myself in this awful loop of loss and lack of action. And so, in
mm,
finding this flow, you have to find where it's going to work for you, trial and
yes.
error, until you get the so called recipe right, and
True.
know uh, what your triggers or responses are going to be. You kind of have to overcome yourself, right? And
Mm,
say, like, for me, I know exactly if I don't work out in the morning, I'm not going to work out. So guys, I
mm,
didn't work out this morning, so I guess I'm not working out today. And
yeah,
I'm going to have to live with that and make a different choice tomorrow.
yeah.
Or, make it up later today is always an option. But this is applying it's like a skill that you have to learn.
Mm,
And again, part of that identity to embody. Sarah,
yes.
there's a couple of other things I want to give opportunity for you to speak of. I want to hear about this book. It feels like a bit of a different book than some of
Mm.
the other ones you've written. Maybe, a newer level of you, a new side of you. And then I'd love for you to just share a little bit too about your nonprofit on education to lean, because
Mhm.
that's just too beautiful a project not to give some stage time during this.
Thank you so much. Yes, so the book is more about the identity system, understanding your nervous system. Because one thing you say, like you wake up in the morning and you know that time frame where you are going to work out. Otherwise, you're not going to get the time frame whole day. So I saw a lot of influence people get from others people. That's great thing, but you need to understand your own architecture. And this book about. One when I spent about 3 to 4 years to write this book. I
Mhm.
did a lot of study. I contradict my own theory and then research on it. I talk with a lot of great people in this specific industry in neuroscience, in the quantum physics, and in the ancient wisdom. I verify all the accuracy of the work that has done so far. So with this all, I created that, and I get reviewed by great authors and editors and all this stuff. One thing you would I will give you an example. Let's say I heard one of the real like specific founder. He wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and he get very productive day, and then another founder and do the same thing, and another founder do the same thing. It's not like every one person is the same, and how much accurate this information is, we don't know. Maybe somebody is a morning person and
Yeah.
they will love to wake up at 4 a.m, but
Mhm.
some people are night people. They are night
Mhm.
owls. I am a night owl. I
Mhm.
can never work out in the morning despite of how much energy I have or something like that.
Mhm.
But my architecture or my mental clock is something I always go at night. That's my sweet spot.
Mhm.
Before sleeping, I would spend 2 hours for working out, spa,
Yeah.
or anything I have to do. So understanding yourself, going into that point. So this is the what the input is. Input of my book is all the data that I just mentioned,
Mhm.
and then the processing to understanding the how can transformation can happen. And the
Mhm.
third thing, the output is you will understand your own self first. You will do your inner work, and your nervous system, your subconsciousness rewiring will start happening once you understand your own self. And you will be surprised, like how can you have control on your own self
Yeah.
versus how was control in other things when you before you started,
Yeah.
like outside source and these kind of things. There's more about the book, and the other thing is talim. Talim is an Urdu word, and uh, is is translation is education.
Yeah.
So this non-profit is a talimhope.org. You will see all the different programs, especially me as immigrant. When people came in from different countries, is when I was living, I was originally from Pakistan, and I remember when Afghan people during the war, Russian war, they migrate to our community, and how hard it was for them to understand the language, the
Mhm.
system, the everything. But the system over there, like people work together with them, and it's take time. And then I put myself in the same shoes when I moved in USA about
Mhm.
25 years ago, and then I was like, I can feel their feelings. Like
Yeah.
you don't understand the language much or fluency versus, how you was in your country. The
Mhm.
freedom, the confidence, that's all kind of like a shrinked down. So Talim is more about not only for immigrant, but also for the people who basically born and raised here, but with the different generations, or they want to understand more kind of like a how things work in this specific, for example, legal system. A lot of Americans, even being American, they have gone through the books and but still not know the rights and the legal stuff. So
Yeah.
this talim has 8 components, starting from the immigrants and the legal study. Then we have a kitchen study as well. So where
Mhm.
we have our seniors who will cook the food, and our young generation, they will learn from them. So we have a
Mhm.
different programs. But the vision behind that is not only to spread the education, but making the awareness of education. And you mentioned, like on my videos, you saw that my recent one, that there is a lot of trends, dropout, dropout, dropout. And I
Yeah.
saw the original research that Harvard and Stanford basically released, that there is a sharp decline in enrollments. And thank you for this kind of news. And that's not true. Elon Musk, they say, is a dropout. He was enrolled in PhD program.
Mhm.
He has 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Like, how can
Yeah.
you say him drop off? And
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg, even reaching out to Harvard, he would never make a Facebook if he would never been into Harvard. Plus
Mhm.
the background, your wealth, and your family, sport, and all this stuff matters a lot. Versus
Mhm.
when you're alone on your own. So that's very important. That's education, that awareness, how to make your safety net, how to make yourself an entrepreneur or whatever you want to be. That's kind of a roadmaps we provide at Talim. We make sure that everyone comes over there have that support and understanding of the education as well.
Yeah. Education is a an excellent framework and foundation to hold all these
Mhm.
other things we've talked about today,
True.
right?
Yep.
And we're
Yep.
not just spitballing, like the professionalism and care that you described in preparing this book makes
Mhm.
it so much deeper than somebody just writing from a beach their story. Not that it's not impactful, personal stories are beautiful, but
Yep.
there's a different depth and um,
Mhm.
like ability to integrate how you've described the quantum code of wealth versus somebody's personal story as anecdotal, right? And that's the power of education, can take us deeper into understanding the world as a system and then how to navigate ourselves in that system. So we're going to include the link to that. Sarah has a Linktree link that's very well organized, where all her things are, including her website and following her on social. And this has just been such a rich and real conversation. And I'm just so thrilled to connect with you and hear your story and have this back and forth exchange. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. And the only thing at the end I will say for
Yeah.
all the women, that resilience is not something you build, it's
Mm.
something you recognize. You have been doing it your whole life. So
Mhm.
the only separating you from the women you admire is they started before they were ready. That's
Mhm.
it. So just started. So that's
Yeah.
the only thing I will say then. But thank you so much, Mia. It was a really great conversation and really amazing to hear your story as well, and your all your conversation and your thoughts is amazing. It's rich.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I really like coming back in here after the conversation just to download. I had to sit for a minute. Sarah complimented me quite a few times, and receiving that as truth and as true rather than, oh, not really bashful, owning that identity, owning that reflection is really wonderful. And I just love that I'm sitting here in my t-shirt early in the morning in my imperfect office background, having incredible conversations like this with incredible women. I don't know how these guests find me all the time. The podcast is out there in a few podcast networks, and the show is attracting high caliber women where we can have exactly this kind of conversation to pour into you. And the running thread in this was really choosing and stretching what you know to be true now in order to evolve your life and yourself. And as I was speaking with Sarah, it again continues to clarify the message and the context of, yes, you guys, the Everyday Woman Awakening program If that title speaks to you or not is less important than the work that happens within, which is the work of self organizing and getting to know yourself so that you can build the awarenesses that we talked about around your framework and your rhythm, around moving before you're ready, around creating safety in uncertainty, and around letting resilience be a part of the journey and not a destination. It is the beginning, it is the cracking of the framework, the structure you're living in, and redefining that and elevating it to a higher place of consciousness, to a higher place of a operational system, if you will. The next cohorts, I run them on Wednesdays and Fridays, so May 6 and May 8, we're going to begin. I'll be freshly back from Africa. Who knows what I'll be like when I come back from the wilds of South Africa, you guys. Come and join me on the journey. I'll share the sales page in the links as well. And go and get in Sarah's space. Like, that woman is way out of my league. And yet she's just another very real woman doing some incredible things because she's choosing that for herself. And we can too. And we do every day between the ambition and the laundry. Oh, I love you so much more than I can describe. I'm honored to spend this time with you. Thank you for joining me. And it is officially April 14th. I'll probably publish this in last week's episode before I leave. So I will see you when I get back from Africa. Take care of yourself. Slow down a little and just enjoy life every day. I love you.